Hello, welcome back to the channel. Bing's Woodworking, the road from novice to pro for woodworking and DIY. So hopefully you're on the road. I know I am, because I am not there yet. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We are doing an epoxy resin island countertop. So I have a customer who wanted just the top replaced, and I have already gone through making it out of MDF, putting on 2 coats of primer and paint in one, and I'm going to show you a process that's really doesn't have much to do with woodworking, but it does have to do with DIY, and so I'll share my experience with you guys and I'll show you what I'm doing. One thing about this job that I thought was really interesting that I will share with you guys, and this does have to do with woodworking. The customer is about a 4-hour drive away, so it wasn't realistic for me to go measure, come back, create the piece, take it back. It wasn't realistic for me to go there and do everything at once either, because this process takes a little while. It takes a couple days. So my customer sent me measurements, but on top of that, they traced out a template. So this was a great idea, and it wasn't mine, it was theirs. They traced it out, sent it to me in the mail, priority mail. I got it in 2 days, and it's a good thing they did, because the measurements and this template are not the same. They're about a 1/2 inch to 3/8 of an inch off in one direction or the other. I don't know if that's going to make that big of a difference, because this island has an overhang of about 1 inch, so probably would have been just fine. But something to think about in the future if you're ever dealing with something where you can't get there and do your own exact measurements. And even if you are there, this is a good way when you're going back to your shop that you have something physical that you can reference instead of your memory or your writing. If you wrote it down, you can't read it, whatever. So the process now, I have already cut out the MDF. I have routed it, primed it twice with a little bit of light sanding each time. And now I'm ready to mix up my epoxy and start mixing up colors and putting it together. We're going for somewhat of a granite look. It's going to be kind of a mix between granite and marble. It's going to be a light color with some beige tones, a little bit of copper and bronze, and a little bit of coral. But the customer wants it to be light and bright and somewhat neutral. So let's see what we can do. Let's have some fun. All right, so I have done my mixing. I've mixed up 3 total ounces per square foot of the table. The table is just a little under 3 foot by 4 foot. Round up, call it 21 square feet. Means I need 63 ounces of resin. Divide that in half, and there's your pour, because the resin has 2 parts. So you got part A and part B, and it won't work without one or the other in equal parts. You got to make sure you mix it up at least 2 minutes. 2 minutes at least. And I watch it real closely while I'm doing it. If I still see little ghosts circling around down in there, then I keep on mixing. And by ghosts, I mean you can tell the different viscosities. There's a luminescence to it if it's not mixed well. You can see it. So if you pay attention, you can watch it. But even if you don't see any, keep mixing for at least 2 minutes, because I've never ever heard of or seen anybody say, dang it, this messed up because I overmixed it. I mixed in where'd it go? Some of this Alumilite white dye in with the main epoxy here. I'm going to spread this out. I'm going to spread it out with a square notch trowel, and we'll get going. Just pour it straight down the middle. It's all right if this gets messy. It doesn't matter. Underneath it, I have some of that cheap whiteboard material from the big box store. I think it costs about $11 a sheet. It's one of the reasons why I use it. It's almost, I consider it pretty much sacrificial. I like it because it shows a good contrast whenever I'm working on wood and whenever I'm working with epoxy. One, epoxy will bond to it a little bit, but really it doesn't bond well to it. You can scrape it up with a putty knife and get it off of there. It bonds really well with wood and this paint and primer that I've got on here. So, square notch trowel. I almost sound like I'm saying trowel. And you just want to barely touch the surface of it. You don't want to scratch it up. And now that we're getting it over the edges, I'm going to get some on my gloved hand, and I'm going to go around and wipe the edges to take care of the surface tension so that you don't get these little drops, rivers going down the edge. Now by doing this, when it runs off the side now, it's going to run like it wants to. It's not going to be channeled to where a drop has already gone down over the side. You can see I did a rounded edge on this. You really want to stay away from 90-degree angles using this resin. I'm going to chop it with a chop brush. This is just going to help this resin level out. Just being completely random. You can see there's a lot more material right there. Don't need to go over the spots that you've already been in. And you don't want to go in lines, and you don't want to keep the same angle on the brush. All right, so we have chopped it. Put this brush back over in the bucket. I'm going to go fishing for that fiber right there. Got it. Just going to use a simple propane torch. So now we have our base down. Now it's time to start adding color. And if you notice, I'm not in much of a hurry. One of the good things about this epoxy is you have a long time to do whatever you want to do. It doesn't set up right away. It doesn't put off a lot of heat. You have a half hour, 45 minutes that you can work with it and make it do what you want. You have so long that if you don't like the outcome, you could just about start over. I just got some copper on the paint stick. I'm not going to go through the middle of that copper vein, but I am going to go right beside it. I'm going to brush this. I'm going to kind of stay in the direction of this grain that I got going, but I am going to brush it. that a little better. Either. Alright, now I really like the way that beige looked, and I know my customer requested the majority of the color to be beige. So here we go with some more of that. Now I'm going to pretty much follow the lines that I made with the gold. Now, I don't like some of these spots where it dripped. So here's going to be our major mover right here. I'm going to use this air gun. It's not an air gun, it's a heat gun. But we're going to move everything with air. It's going to feather it out, give it a really neat appearance. You don't have to worry about catching it on fire. This product is non-flammable. The paint, which is flammable, is suspended in it. Remove that gold. Not too much of it right there. See that striation right there? I had some granite in my last house. Almost looked identical to that, just different colors. same type of texture. That looks pretty good right there. We could just about finish it. I got one more trick up my sleeve. Some coral metallic, which I think is going to work really well because there's already some pinkish colors just from these colors mixing together with 91% alcohol. This alcohol and the resin will work against each other and create these cool fisheye effects like you see in normal granite. But in order to get it like I want it, I'm going to fog it first with this pearl white. I think this is called shell white. So it's going to have a little bit of pearl in it. It's going to brighten up some of these dark spots because the customer definitely does not want it dark. Probably doesn't want it that bold. So this spot right here, I'm going to fog it. This has to be good and shook up. And then I'm not going to mist it. I'm going to put heavy drops on it. So to do this, I'm just barely squeezing the trigger so I get big drops. I wasn't getting as big of drops as I wanted out of the squirt bottle. So this part is a little time sensitive once I sprayed that spray paint on there. So you can see how the drops happened. The spray paint's going out to the edge. You're seeing through it, and that metallic is still showing through. I'm going to cover up some more of this gold and copper. And this thing continues to evolve as we're working on one piece. You can see how this has changed over here. This has changed over here. What used to be a straight line of copper, we made it fan a little bit with the heat gun, but now it's squiggly. I couldn't have done that intentionally, no matter how hard I had tried. But this thing continued to evolve and move after I left last night. So right here, we had a pretty white spot. I added just a touch of the beige paint, hit it with some of the alcohol and the copper, and then I ran the heat gun through it aggressively. And where the heat gun went, that's where you see that lighter color. That's the white base coming through from the bottom.